Many of our Fluid sound bites show custom CSS, and if you see me writing CSS, well, you might start to ask, should I be writing CSS? Now that's a great question. Actually, it's a question I ask myself all the time. Should I be writing CSS? Here, let me give you the short answer. Write as little CSS as possible. Leverage as much of the Oracle delivered CSS framework as possible. So here, let's start with an example. So on my screen, I have a page, and this page has 3 group boxes, and we see that they kind of all run together, don't they? So my students in class, often as we're going through Fluid, they'll ask a question. They'll ask, is it possible to center the label of the group box over the content within inside the group box? So can you center the label over the group box content? And the answer is, of course, yes, because the answer is always yes. Why? Because it's a computer, and you can do anything with a computer. That's why we have such thing as virtual reality, because you can do things on a computer you can't do in real life. So the answer is always yes. It's not can you, but rather how and how much. So here, let's take this as an example. Let's say I want to center this. So I'll start with the framework. So there's a style class. It is called PSC underscore H align dash center. And we'll look here, I say I'm at the column 1 of 3, column 1 of 3. Okay, so each of the different columns, perfect. So I'm over the column that I want to align. So let's align the content. Now watch my screen. Watch the hotel label. You can see the blue box there, so I expect it to jump to the center. Watch what happens. Well, did you see that? Rewind a little bit if you didn't catch it. The hotel label did in fact jump to center, but here's the interesting thing. The content moved also. And it didn't move to the center. I mean, if you look at it, the spacing, this is to the right of center. Anyway, clearly the delivered style class isn't going to work for me here. So this is a situation where maybe I might have to write my own CSS to center the label over the content. Now there is another style class. Let's take a look at it. It is PSC label underscore H align, right? Okay, label. Okay, just align the label, right? I think that's what that means. Here, let's try it out. Let's find out. So I'm just going to copy paste out of the guide there. And that didn't work. Actually, it reset because it got rid of the H align dash center. This is label H align. Actually, maybe it didn't work because the dash here isn't really a dash. We covered that in a prior soundbite episode. It's actually a smart dash for Microsoft Word, so it's actually somewhere in the Unicode character range. It's not acceptable for a style class name, and what we really need is an ASCII dash there. So let's try that. Let's replace it with the ASCII dash, and let's see what happens. Oh, nothing. Why not? Well, we covered this in a prior episode as well. The problem is, and if you look at the style sheet, the Fluid style library style sheet behind the style class, what you'll find is that this style class is defined as a nested or composite selector. So it's actually looking for the label within a div element. So it's looking for a label object, and that's not what I have here. I have a group box structure, not say a label data entry field structure, totally different HTML structure. So what I need to do then is write CSS that I can apply using style classes that I want. And we won't walk all the way through this scenario here. I won't go into persisting the style sheet in App Designer, etc. I just want to give you an example, a scenario where I might write my own CSS. So here, let's just change the prefix so that we're following the same pattern. You know what? We should put GB in here as well, shouldn't we? GB for group box, GB label, group box label. Okay, so I have my style class created. Now I need to apply some styling attributes to that. I'm just going to mock it up here in the browser. So there's the style class name, and then I see the structure here. I don't actually want to style this element, but if I were to look in Application Designer, a group box, I get one element to attach CSS to. But what we see here is at runtime, that one group box element is expanded into a variety of HTML elements. I actually want to style this nested internal element. That's not something that I can attach a style class to a site application designer. So what we'll do is we'll create a composite selector here, and that's what it would actually persist if I were to keep this CSS. So I've got the name there, it's on my clipboard, and I'm going to create a new, right here, let's create a new style rule, and let's apply our composite selector. Okay, so let's see, it did not like something that I did there. Let's try this again. .jsm_gb label dash HL line right. Perfect. Okay. And we see that it's a nice bold color versus the lighter color there. That tells us that it actually did match the selector. And now let's try centering. How about text-align center? Oh, perfect. It centered the content inside the group box. But interesting, the label still isn't over the content, is it? So if you look at the content here, I mean, it looks centered, but it just looks that way. It's not. It's because if we were to look at the CSS here, how this is defined, it's actually defined as 33%. The label gets 33%, the data entry field gets the other 66%. So it's actually center left, which is what we're really seeing here. So what I would say to you is the problem here is not that the label is centered. And see, that's what a lot of people think. They look at this and say, hey, can you center the labels? I think the real problem is a relational issue. It's hard for us relationally when we see that border going across the bottom and we see the distance between the group box label and the content. It's hard for us to relationally see that that label is associated with the content. So I think the issue here is really a relational issue. So, hey, again, let's get back to the question at hand. Should you write your own CSS? You know, if I really want to center this, maybe perhaps I would write my own CSS here. But here's why I'm going to say don't write your own CSS. Stay away from writing your own CSS. Write CSS when you have to, but write as little as possible. Leverage as much of the framework as possible. Why? Why do I say that? You see, the more CSS you write, the more you have to maintain. And the CSS I write today is based off the Oracle style library as it's delivered today with the appearance it has today. See the spacing here. I might write CSS based off the spacing. I might write CSS based on the fact that labels take up 33%. Will labels take up 33% tomorrow? I don't know. But if I write CSS today based off those assumptions, I'm going to have to maintain that CSS tomorrow if and when Oracle makes changes to that CSS. And you know what I know? I know Oracle's going to make changes to the CSS. How do I know that? This is 858. See that nice blue color there? In 857, that was green. Do you see that nice black color up there? In 857, that was blue. The button, in 857, that was green. Yes, Oracle is going to make changes to their style sheets. And I want to inherit as much as possible. The more I write, the more I have to maintain. Now, yes, absolutely, I will write CSS when it makes sense, but I will write as little CSS as possible because I know the more CSS I write, the more I have to maintain. And I have to tell you, I absolutely love creating solutions, but I'm not fond of going back to those solutions. And we know that those one-off solutions that we create, those become our nightmares in the future with those upgrades and lifecycle management. We know those are the things that hold back our selective adoption and continuous delivery. So write as little CSS as possible. Leverage the framework as much as possible. But when you have to, absolutely write CSS, but write as little as possible. Now we have some CSS written here in the browser, but as soon as I refresh this browser window, it's gone. Are you curious how to persist the CSS? That's one of the topics we cover in our Fluid class. At JSM Pros, we believe Fluid is one of the most important PeopleTools technologies for us to learn. After all, it is Oracle's strategic direction, and that is why we teach Fluid several times per month. Be sure to check out our website to see when we're offering it next. Or here's an idea, subscribe to our LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter feeds to receive updates every time we post a course. Or do you have a team that wants to learn Fluid? Give us a call and let's get something on the schedule. Now before we go, I have a question for you. Do you have a topic you'd like us to cover in a future soundbite? Let us know by sharing your idea at soundbites.jsmpros.com. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more content. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.